City Council meeting of September 1st has come to order. Can we please stand up for Pledge of Allegiance? And Jackie, would lead us to Pledge of Allegiance? To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic which is standing, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Please have a moment of silence for the responders and the military members, and I'd also like to add to all the essential workers that have given up their lives for us for the COVID as well. Thank you. Please be seated. May I have roll call, please?
Roll call. Councilmember Baptista. Present. Councilmember Aguilar.
Present.
Councilmember Payne.
Present.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
Present.
Mayor Samra.
Present.
For the record, council members, Mayor Pro Tem, and Mayor are in attendance.
Thank you. Changes to the agenda? Council, any changes? Staff? If not, then I'm not sure if Supervisor Espinoza is online. Are you online, Mr. Espinoza? If not, then we'll go on to city announcements, tasks, and reports. Chief, anything to report? Recreation? Public Works? Financial is going to have a good night, but you have anything to report? Okay, and then is there anybody from staff that's online right now? If not, then we'll move on to city manager announcements and reports.
Yes, Honorable Mayor, Council, I do have a couple of things that I would like to share. One, we've been working real closely after been given direction by Council on the village apartments, as you all know. We had a workshop as it relates to the Swanson Hawk. There was some direction given to work with the project owners. We did, and so after extensive talks and education, they decided that they were going to elevate their negative declaration to a full EIR. So the last conversation that I had with them, they were making contact with Base Camp Environmental, and so they're going to initiate the full EIR. So after the EIR is actually completed, then they'll be coming back to council, and it's at that time that we need to come up with the findings for a categorical exemption and then further direction. So just wanted to share that with council. The second thing that I wanted to share, Monica sent out a copy of the letter that we received from Livingston Community Health talking about the vaping and tobaccos and cigarettes and e-cigarettes and things of that nature. And so I just wanted to make sure that you guys were aware that that email was sent out. And that's all I have for now. Thank you very much, unless you have any questions.
Okay. City Council members' reports. Councilmember Aguilar?
Nothing to report.
Councilmember Kane?
Yeah, nothing to report.
Councilwoman Batista?
I just wanted to follow up on some of the census items that we should be doing. For our community, we have the remaining of this month until the self-report for all of the residents to get online, text, put in your flyers to be counted. Our numbers are very low. I know that we're around 58 or something %. And that's not what I'm worried about. Those are the numbers that are in. I'm worried about that other percent, the money that we're not getting because we're not out there being aggressive enough to go get it. So I just want to know what is it that we're doing? Well, I know what I'm doing, that I've gone out and spoke with some of the farmers for their packing sheds and handed out flyers. A few times we've gone to the church services and made announcements. But as a leadership up here that needs to go out there and get those funds, what else are we doing? And the bigger question is how come we didn't be more aggressive from the get-go?
Councilwoman, thank you very much for those comments. There's definitely much more that we can do with the census. As it relates to the census in general, what we've been doing, and of course we can always do more, especially given the fact that the percentage is actually still low. But from the onset, what we've done is, as you might recall, we had our representative, Mrs. Patricia Anderson, come here from the onset, trying to put together a complete count committee. We've had her present 2 or 3 times. That never materialized. Nobody really stepped forward to do that. So then we basically went to the next step, which was to use our social media platforms. We actually received from the Latino Community Foundation some bingo sets, and so we hosted some bingo sets to educate the people and give out some prizes. Then we asked for materials, posters, shirts, and trinkets, so that we can entice people as well and hand out to different organizations. And then we had Mrs. Patricia Anderson come back and talk to us about communicating some more information as it relates to the census. And we continue to use the social media platforms. Then you stepped up along with Councilmember Aguilar and several other, Wilma and other folks from the community, and had that caravan around town. And so, again, we just need to keep sounding the alarm, letting everybody know the importance of the census. So we need to do more. Again, the percentage is low, 58%. It's not a good number.
Could I jump in real quick? Because Councilman Aguilar. Yeah, definitely. There's obviously more we could do. We could educate as much as possible. Yeah, those percentages are concerning. I like what we did last time with the caravan. I think that was a nice way to go out to the community, be hands-on, and try to get people to do it. We provided good education materials and some giveaways, so that was pretty cool. I'll be willing to work with you if you're wanting to plan something like that again. I know that we had support from the police department and the fire department, as well as other community groups and stakeholders. So.
I appreciate that, Councilmember Aguilar, but I believe it's all of us. I think all of us, well, I know all of us need to step that up. We've got, again, just 1 month for people to go out there, and then the trackers will come out here and try to pick up the rest. But those numbers have to be counted, every single one of them. If we're looking at some of these numbers that we're going to be going into tonight, we need that other funding, and we're not stepping up as leaders to go out there and go get it and show people how to get it. The education, the bingo, I remember seeing a picture of that, and that's all good, but I think our work is better done out on the pavement, getting those numbers. I know with some restrictions, but we have to make our community aware to do that count. So again, I'm calling you all out to participate.
Mayor Pro Tem, this is Councilmember Aguilar. You have anything to report? We have some technical difficulties with the mayor.
Negative. I'm good. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The mayor will be back in just a couple minutes. Please bear with us.
Mayor Stammer. Okay, Mayor Pro Tem, anything to report? I lost the call. Okay. If not, then for me, I just want to take this opportunity to pay our deepest respect and condolences to the family of Anthony Sarria. His mom had passed away today. We just wanted to know that they are in our thoughts and prayers, and we grieve with them. And after that, now we have citizens' comments. This section of the agenda allows the members of the public to address the City Council on an item not otherwise on the agenda. Members of the public recognized mayor should come over and identify themselves. Comments will only to 3 minutes in accordance with state open meeting laws. No action will be taken by City Council this evening. For items which are on the agenda this evening, members of the public will provide opportunity to address the City Council each item is brought up for discussion. Does anybody from the public wish to make citizen comment at this time?
I do.
Please identify yourself.
Hi, my name is Michelle, and I have a few questions I wrote down. Please bear with me. I've noticed that other elected officials will step out of certain decisions because of conflict of interest. I have yet to see Councilmember Aguilar step out of any decisions when it comes to the fire department. Councilmember Aguilar, are you a volunteer firefighter for the Merced County? Why not step out? Also, it appears the city manager wants to save money by putting our residents safely on the back burner, our safety on the back burner. There has been multiple shootings this year, with 3 occurring in the last 30 days, while our city manager reported $250,000 in salary and benefits for the 2018 year, according to California Transparency. Mayor and council member, I can only pay my bill from 8/12 because City Hall is closed on lockdown, while our community becomes a war zone. Our officers are overworked and understaffed. Do we need more residents to get killed, or maybe an officer? If the council wanted to save money, take a look into the city manager's contract. A question for the chief. Do you need these positions that the city council is trying to freeze to better run your department? Mayor and council, I'm asking you that you please review the general budget before approving it. My children in the community should have safe streets to play on. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would you like us to respond to those this time?
I can respond real quick to her comment in regards to my part. I am not an employee or I have no financial interest when it comes to the city. The city does not pay me. I have no financial gain when it comes to the city. I'm a paid call firefighter for the Merced County Fire Department. I don't benefit in regards to anything in regards to the city, equipment or anything like that.
Thank you, Mr. Aguilar. Mr. Ramirez, would you like to respond to the rest of the question?
Yes, thank you very much for your questions, Michelle. As it relates to my specific contract, that's up to the council, and they can certainly address that. As it relates to the general fund budget and what items within the budget themselves, we're making recommendations, and council ultimately has the ultimate prerogative to take a different direction. But I stand by my recommendations. I completely understand where you're coming from as it relates to the shootings, and we are trying to do everything that we can in balancing not only safety but also the well-being financially of the department and then of the city. And our department, our chief will certainly respond to the other question that you have, and I appreciate your community engagement, civic engagement, and your questions. Thank you.
Chief, would you like to respond?
Yeah. Victoria, Police Department. Bottom line is, without getting into a lot of other stuff, yes, I would take them back in a minute. Would they help the department? Would they help with curbing some of the crime? Yeah, they would. That's just the bottom line. Without getting into anything else, I would take them back right now. Yes, I would.
I have a question for you, Chief. On an average shift, how many officers do you have working?
On average, 2.
2?
Yeah.
So if one's taking somebody to jail, the whole city's patrolled by one officer?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Okay. Does anybody else wish to make a citizen comment at this time? If not, then citizen comment is now closed. We're going to consent agenda. Items in the consent calendar are considered routine and non-controversial to be enacted by one vote unless separate action is requested by city manager or city council member. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless the members of the city council or city manager request a specific item be removed. Item number 1, this is approval of the warrant register dated August 27, 2020. Approval of the minutes meeting held July 7, 2020. Approval of the meetings held on August 4, 2020. Approval of the minutes meeting held on August 6, 2020. Council, any discussion? If not, then I'll entertain a motion at this time.
I make motion to approve the consent agenda.
I have a motion by Councilman Aguilar. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Who was it?
Mayor Pro Tem, second it.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem seconds it. May I have roll call, please?
Roll call. Councilmember Baptista? Yes. Councilmember Aguilar?
Yes.
Councilmember King?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia?
Yes.
Mayor Summer?
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 5-0.
Thank you. Discussion of potential action items. This is a resolution adopting the budget and appropriating revenue for fiscal year 2021, setting the GAN approaching limit for fiscal year 2021. Yeah. Hold on a second.
So we're going to go over kind of the procedures and then give some little bit of direction, and then at that point, Councilmember King, when the PD budget comes up, we can exit and then come back in. So go ahead, Vanessa.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, council members, members of the public, city, and my fellow city staff members. Vanessa Portillo, Finance Director. We are here today to get some guidance from our council in regards to our proposed budget for 2020-2021. We have held 3 workshops for the council to ask any questions and to review the budget that has been presented. We have made recommendations as far as the general fund, how to balance and how to achieve a balanced budget, meaning that revenues can sustain the expenditures for the city, and we would like to get guidance from the council to move forward. Tonight, I believe that we have sectioned the budget or the decision of the budget into 2 parts. We sectioned it in public safety, so public safety items can be discussed, and I, at the direction of Councilmember Ken, he requested to recuse themselves from the decision for the public safety budget. So we will discuss that, make any recommendations, and we will review the rest of the budget after we integrate to the council support.
Councilor Burkay, do you have any comments to make?
No, I have no comment.
So with that, we can proceed with our public works. Our
Are
public safety budget.
Are you recusing yourself? Yeah, you need to state that.
We'll be doing the police department first, and then the rest. Then we'll call you back in.
Well, like I said, I would like to step out of this discussion because due to the fact that my brother is a police sergeant, and we are getting the opinion to see if I could participate in this. So until then, I will step away from this discussion. Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
This is the PowerPoint slide that we presented during the last workshop on August 25th. And I just wanted to point it to the for general fund. This is a public safety slide. So this is the public safety org chart for the way that they are administratively sectioned, the operations division and the administrative division. Next slide, please, Madam. Our police department goals, traffic, crime suppression, communications throughout the city. Next slide, please. Here's the officer coverage ratio comparison chart. We did some research on the officer population ratio for the city within the county, and also our very next neighbor city to the north, Furlough. And I wanted to get to the slide of how we were proposing to balance or present to you recommendations on how to balance the general fund. And we would like to take any recommendations, guidance, questions, if you have any.
Vanessa, why don't you go ahead and state our recommendation again, just for everybody's benefit, and then we'll go from there.
Absolutely. I have in this chart the two recommendations that I had shared with the council. Workshop number 2, when we held our meeting back in August 6th, one of the options that we were recommending was to implement furloughs around the city. And we received very good news from our sales tax consultant, HPL, where one-time money is going to be coming our way. It's about $187,000, and we are now in our workshop 3 on August 25th. We proposed that if we would use the one-time sales tax revenue in order to balance the budget. That will take away the furlough option for now. We also proposed or recommended that if we freeze the vacant positions that we have in the city. Currently, we have 3 positions vacant, the police department. There's 1 part-time position in recreation, and there are 3 positions, a total of 6 positions. 4 of them, are part-time positions in public works department. Most of them are not general fund supported, and they're not counting. They're not counted as part of the general fund balancing. But we listed them so we can show all of the vacant positions that we have right now. We also shared that it was going to be crucial for us to look at our fees, the structure of our fees, especially in our recreation department and our community development, our building permits, our inspections, and in all of our development fees. That is definitely an area where we can see or try to mitigate some of the general fund burden that it is being created by this fund requiring a subsidy at the end of the year from the general fund. And we also shared that we will be looking at inwards into how we're organized, how we're structured to continue to find efficiencies within our department, streamlining processes, and continuing to work more in utilizing the best, our resources at its best. So that is the recommendations that we are proposing as of August 25th during our 3rd workshop.
Thank you. Council, any comments on just the police budget at this time? I'll start with Councilmember Aguilar.
So the comments I have regarding this portion of the budget is that I know we're trying to freeze certain, how many police officers, how many positions, police department?
It's 1 police officer, 1 dispatcher, a captain position currently vacant.
With that said, obviously there are concerns due to the current environment with the uptake in shootings. I don't think it's a secret. The community knows that there has been an increase in shootings, and that is concerning to me. That perhaps we need to have more bodies out there and more support, more staffing. At the same time, obviously, there's things that we have to do in order to balance the budget. I don't want to furlough anybody or reduce, hours and stuff like that for other positions. So there has to be some kind of balance, so that's where the conflict for me presents itself, where, I think the importance of having more bodies, having our streets safe, address the uptake in shootings is very important and essential for the safety of the community. But at the same time, I know that we don't want to land in a deficit and begin to lay off people or reduce other programs or other services. So that's kind of what I'm thinking, or my thought process right now. I know we could work together, we could do better, come up with a solution. get creative. I know we could work with our police chief, or city manager, in regards to coming up with a plan of action. That's what I have to say right now. I'll probably add more after we continue with the discussion.
Thank you. Councilman Bautista, your comments, ma'am?
I'm also very aware of how and the way the direction of our town is going at this moment. The increase of shootings and looking back, the numbers are almost the same. I mean, not that I want to compare anything, not that we should have to deal with such crimes in our city. And we are very skeletal in that department. And looking at those positions, especially one for the captain position, in the best interest of our city, it's hard to say that we want to freeze any positions as a permanent thing, because in past, I believe what has been the trend was that once the position was froze, it never came back. And we have to have some type of incentive for our officers to come to Livingston. Otherwise, we're going to be losing them. And I know that in the past that we've had reserve officers, and I think working with the chief, the department, city manager, that we can help support younger officers coming into town, having them trained, being on the street, with ride-alongs, getting to know our community. Because one of the things that I'm really proud of is that we do have chief. Our chief's been with us for 30 years, and we've had many officers stay with us. The longevity is what we're looking at, because those are the type of men and women we want out protecting our city. So seizing positions and not bringing them back is not ideal. Working real thin is neither wanted. So the safety, again, of our town is of the utmost, and we shouldn't take that lightly at all. And we should be bringing in our new officers and being out there in a type of recruitment process, being aggressive. I know other towns are doing it. They're bringing in reserve officers. They have incentives for them. And I know there's not a pay for like reserve ones. But again, if you can help me out on that, there is a process, and I know that we used to have it, and I believe that we need to look back into that so that we have officers that are willing to stay in Livingston, and we keep them here, not just keep them here, they get their training and they leave. We have to provide some type of a motivation for them to want to stay and move up in our ranks as those times come. So again, working with the department, working with the city manager, I believe that there's something that can be done rather than just keeping all those positions, not hiring anybody or bringing anybody new, or not providing any way for young officers to come into Livingston.
Mayor Pro Tem, your comments, sir?
Well, I agree with both Councilmember Bautista and Councilmember Aguilar, so I'm not going to keep on the subject, but yeah, we for sure need to do something here in the city with our police officers. I mean, the word freeze, what does that mean right now to Vanessa and Jose? If either one could answer that question. What does that mean to you guys to freeze a position?
Mr. Ramirez?
Does it mean to put it on hold, or does that mean to throw it out and it's never coming back?
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem. No, we were only talking about this fiscal year. the freezing of the position is a reference to this fiscal year, and that wouldn't carry on to the next fiscal year. And so specifically to answer your question, the freezing of the position does not correlate with future years. So it's not completely freezing the position or eliminating the position. It just means that we would capture the savings of that position being vacant this fiscal year so that we can materialize the overall savings to balance the budget. And if council is looking at making some adjustments in the police department and looking at hiring somebody, let's say just a line officer of sorts, of course, the savings that we're materializing in the captain position, okay, and looking at balancing overall, we would have to look at bringing in funds from other parts of the general fund budget in order to achieve that.
Thank you. Have we thought about reserve officers? I think they don't get paid here in the city, correct? Am I correct?
That is correct.
No, they do not.
They do not.
Okay, so I know that's a big savings. As a part-time police officer, there's other agencies that have that, and these guys just want to come out and work on the weekends, and they have their other full-time job, or they're a business owner, but they just want that adrenaline of being an officer for the city where they live at. Usually it's half the cost to pay one of them without any benefits. And maybe we have to look into that also.
Sure. I will give it over to the chief to make any comments related to any reservations or any concerns, or if that would be something that would be beneficial in your eyes, Chief.
You can just do it. That's it.
Oh, I definitely would let it bring on some reserves. And actually, we do have quite a few applicants that, with the approval of the city manager, I can go ahead and start the recruitment process right away.
And and what else would you need, Chief? Is that it, or is there any other? Equipment. Any more vehicles. What is it that you need overall if you were to bring in?
Well, as far as equipment, I think we've pretty much identified, and actually we're going to be getting with Vanessa on as for equipment. I think we'll be good with that for this year and probably next. But after that, it's obviously going to be have to be put in the budget for new vehicles. That's going to probably be the one biggest issue. As for Eternal, I can't see anything. We're pretty much up to par on most of our equipment when it comes to the officers, our everything that they use that's on their duty belts, training, anything regarding anything that goes in the vehicles. We try to keep on top of that constantly. So other than probably one vehicle that hopefully getting with Vanessa next week, we can identify where we can get that money from. That's probably one of our biggest hurdles right now that we have to address right away. That would probably be the biggest.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem, further comments?
No, that was the only thing I had. Like the chief said earlier, they only have 2 officers in the city at one time, and one goes to the jail to take someone. At least having a reserve next to you. There's 2 cops going to 1 call at least instead of 1. And I've been in that position, and that will help out a lot. So that's what I'm recommending. Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. And for me, I agree with the council. I think each and every one of us would like to hire more officers. That's given. But I'm not sure if I really want to hire more officers if there's no budget to support it the following year. But I do like the idea of reserves. I think that's something we can bring back to the council. We have a little bit of a cushion. Maybe some of that money can be used for the reserve program to reactivate it. That may be possible. And as far as Councilwoman Batista's comments, what we do in terms of retain officers and hire officers, I think the council, we're all there wanting to do that. And one of the things we did do is we did give a little bit of a raise to the employees and to the officers so they're able to better support themselves and serve the city. Because we can't match what not Atwater, but Turlock or the that's where they pay or series. We can't. We don't have the money. But at least I think this council, this city, and the citizens of Livingston do try to do everything we can to support our officers. We do. And as far as the shooting, I know they're concerning. I don't like them. And unfortunately, I'm not sure if another officer is really going to help, because even with 3 officers, it doesn't work. I mean, you have one officer, what shift do you put him on? You're still going to have the same vacancy, but we should be doing something, obviously. I've seen and noticed, and I think Chief Story can attest to this, other cities have also seen a similar increase in shootings, crime. Watch news anytime. Every city's gotten it. A lot of this has to do with COVID, has to do with all this. But we do have to make a decision. And I think from what I'm hearing from my fellow council members, we're probably going to be going with the recommendation. But before we go to vote, I am going to open this up to the public for their comment. So at this time, anybody from the public wish to speak, please state your... I'm sorry, before I open it up, Councilwoman Batista?
I just have one more thing. Earlier I spoke on the census and what those projections may or will be. We're about 14,000. After the census, those numbers are going to increase. I don't know how much, but again, we're looking at the ratio of our officers to our public. And when you're speaking about crime compared to other cities, I mean, I care about our other cities. I also care very deeply for the town of Livingston. And what I'm seeing is that as our surrounding cities are getting bigger and our housing and our availability for apartments and getting into places to stay, if you're looking at those police reports, you can see that many of those people are from out of town. And that's very unsettling that they're coming into Livingston and bringing types of riffraff with them. And if that's going to be a up-and-coming trend where people are moving into Livingston because everybody around us is getting more development and they are taking more pride and ownership of their home. They can come to Livingston, get rentals and other subsidies to live in housing, go to the apartments that we have. Again, bringing out-of-towners. I mean, I welcome them, but I don't welcome their trouble. And so as we look at that and people coming into Livingston and the growth that we haven't taken into account that it's already here, a need for another officer is you can't fight it. We're going to have to do it because those numbers, that if we're low here, and I know you had said earlier, Paul, about the crime, and bringing on another officer isn't going to change much, but having them out there on at least on the streets, having them visible as they used to be back in, I don't know, maybe about a decade ago, we had many officers, and we always had that feeling of that safety surrounding us. But as we get bigger, yeah, we can't fight it. We're going to have to do it at some point.
Mm-hmm. Councilwoman Batista, that is an excellent point. I'm not saying that we're not going to hire no officers. I'm just saying currently what the budget will support. As Lake and McNeil, we are at least trying to be within other cities, within the ballpark of other cities. Now, one thing, I know we talked about it, is a reserve program. That is an excellent idea that will get people out here, and hopefully, maybe mid-year, we don't know, if things change, maybe we can look at something. Just to clarify it, I think Chief Soria can also say to this, over the years, I have been a number one supporter, like all of us here, of public safety. We wish we had more officers, of course. And decade when we had more officers, pay was a lot lower, benefits were a lot lower, there was a lot of things. Unfortunately, our revenue hasn't kept up the same pace as the expenses. So we also need to work on heavily in promoting economic growth. Homes are not necessarily economic growth. We need to do commercial, industrial, that bring in revenue. This is where I think we also need to focus as council so we can bring in more revenue so we can put more resources in protecting our city and take care of it. I would love to also one day to see if we can have our own professional fire department. That would be awesome. But I think our goal is going to be primarily in the beginning to enhance our police department. And also, if this passes the way I think it might, I would also like to, in that motion, if we make it, is to give direction to the staff to work on the reserve program, come back to see if there's anything we need to help us move forward on that. Because that made the way, because I think we also used to have a decade ago and sometimes a very heavy reserve program as well. There were not always officers. There were a lot of reserves out there as well. So if we can't afford full-time officers, we can definitely earmark some money towards the reserve program. So I would highly ask that we add that into our motion if we do pass this week. So, Council, any comments before I open to the public?
Yeah, I have some further comments.
Go ahead, please. Mayor Pro Tem, I'll be in next in just a minute. Go ahead, Mr. Ayala.
Well, I mean, there's different aspects to all of this. I know that perhaps it might be some type of temporary solution, having other reserve program. You know, obviously we have to explore that option. I know in this city they don't get paid, but maybe with some kind of incentive, some kind of pay, you know, we could attract more and retain them, like Mayor Pro Tem Garcia was saying. Some want to have that part-time job on the weekend and be part of, you know, get back to the community. So obviously, you know, as everybody has stated, that might be one option. But we also have to be realistic and be, you know, work together to understand that we do need more staff and we do need more officers. That's very important. Hopefully, maybe the situation changes and at mid-year reviews, that could be a possibility. I'm really hopeful that that'll be a possibility since we are saving in some other departments right now due to the COVID situation. But yeah, it's very important. But like I also wanted to say, besides having a look into the reserve program, we have to also look at other things that we need to do as a police department, as a city. Obviously, it's a deterrent to have more bodies out there in the street, more police officers in the street. That's an obvious deterrent for criminals and criminal activity. But also, there's another aspect. There's community policing. There's other actions that we could take to prevent, you know, such activity in the community. And that's why, Chief, I like what you mentioned last time, and I praise you for that, that community policing and having officers reach out, block the streets, be visible, reach out, talk to the community, talk to the kids, it's very important. So there's other things we could do besides that we need, not besides, but that we need to do in collaboration with having more officers. And I think if we're going to have that study or that look into research programs, we also have to have a component of other things that we will need to do to address the uptake in shootings, like community policing, whatever it might be, whatever. I mean, I'll leave it up to you, to the professionals, to you guys to come up with something with the city manager and have a comprehensive plan of what we need to do. But let's not kid ourselves. We do need more officers. We're going to have to look for those, something by funding, grants, research program with some incentives. But we need to have some kind of plan of action sooner than later to move forward. I understand the budget, due to COVID-19, the situation has changed, and we are trying to be as fiscally responsible as possible. But I'm hoping that we do have a plan of action soon. And then mid-year budget review, we could hopefully hire those bodies we need. And not only officers, but also, I know we've had discussions about a second full-time firefighter. We only have one full-time firefighter right now, covering the whole city. So I know that's also something that's come up in discussions we've had regarding that.
Mayor Pro Tem?
I'm good now. Councilmember Aguilar stole my speech, so I agree with him.
Okay. And just for, there was a little bit of questions by you, I believe, Mayor Pro Tem, freezing positions. It is my understanding, Vanessa, whoever wants to correct, that if officer were to leave from the current number, we can replace that position. Correct? So we're not just not hiring more officers, so an officer leaves, we can fill that position. It will leave at the current staffing level, correct?
Correct. The positions we're asking to freeze is the ones that are currently vacant. So anything that comes after, it's not part of our balance.
I just want Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sure he knows that public at large understand that freezing doesn't mean it will fall below the current staffing level. It just means we won't hire any new officers at this time. Just wanted to make that clarify for everybody. Before I come back to the council, I am going to open this up to the public. Does anybody from the public wish to make any comments on just the police department budget portion only, please, at this time? If you do, please state your name and make your comments, please.
Yeah, hi. My name's Steve Reynolds. I got a comment.
Please identify yourself.
Yeah, my name's Steve Reynolds. I
Go
was
ahead,
wondering, Mayor Gerpel, you were talking about generating money. Whatever happened to the property on Olive? Has the city received funds for that?
Okay, I'll let. I want to let city manager comment on that, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Ramirez.
Yes, Steve, thank you very much for that comment. That specific, let me just mention in general that different properties, depending on where they're actually categorized, that funding is therefore specific. So, for instance, if the property was purchased by the enterprise fund, let's say the wastewater treatment plant, or for water, any money generated for the sale of that property would have to go back to those respective funds. So the property over at the Olive, that one was specifically earmarked for the fire department use at earlier last year. And so any funds generated from that specific property will be allocated specifically to the fire department. But to answer your question, that property has already been sold. It's currently in escrow, and again, funds from there cannot be used other than the fire department. Thank you for your question.
Mr.
Hasn't
Steve,
that property been sold like 7 months ago?
Yes, sir. And the reasoning for that is that there was some renegotiation. Well, first of all, somebody else had purchased the property, but it didn't close escrow. Then it was sold again, and there was some negotiations, and that's one of the reasons why it's been taking so long. But the property has been sold.
okay, Mr. Steve, any further questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome, sir. Anybody else from the public?
Yes, if I may.
Go ahead, please identify yourself.
Hi, this is Jose Moran, PO Box 847, Livingston, California. And has the department or the city, have we ever considered a patrol volunteer program like other successful programs that other cities currently have? And if how much would that cost? And one other question, I know that we talked about, or you guys talked about, the possibility of a part-time officer. Roughly, how much of a cost would that be to the budget? And I think we all can agree that safety is a priority for everyone in Livingston. But the main thing is we need to look at right now what we need to focus on is that we need to be fiscally responsible. So we need to figure out a way of how or where the money is going to come from. And I totally agree that we need additional officers, but then again, we need to have the money to be able to do that. And in the meantime, I would like to ask Chief Soria, in his professional opinion, with the current 16 officers that we have, would we be able to perform in a professional, with professional service to the residents of Livingston? And then once again, we also need to consider if we hire an additional officer, how much of a difference is that going to make? Because that one officer is only going to be able to be in one shift. So, you know, it is going to make a difference, but it's not going to make a difference. So, and those are my questions for the moment. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Moran, I will have Chief Sawyer first answer the question about our volunteer program. That actually is my roots in the beginning. Back in '96, I was actually the volunteer. So, Chief, go ahead and answer those Mr. Moran's questions, please.
Yeah, Mr. Moran, we do have a volunteer program. Actually, we have two. I was looking at two others, but when COVID hit, I put that on the back burner. And actually, the two that we have right now are elderly. So we basically told them to stay at home. We didn't want to risk them catching anything by being out in the public, more so than they probably should be. So that's what we basically did with our volunteer program. As for the other question, would one extra help? You know, I don't know how you can actually gauge something like that. I don't think it would hurt. There's different things that we can do. We're definitely going to continue to try to provide the service that we've always done. I don't want to guarantee anything because things happen. I don't want to say that we're going to be perfect and totally stop all these shootings because next week, knock on wood that it doesn't, because I don't want to see anybody hurt here, that something happens again. But we're going to try our darndest to do everything we can to make sure that we curb these in every way we can. We do have a plan of what we are going to do. There are several things that I did come up on last week's, I believe, budget workshop, the things that we are going to do, we are doing. Meet with the supervisors tomorrow. We are going to definitely vamp up and start doing a lot more. I want to curb these as much as possible. But to answer your question, when it comes down to the one officer, you know, it's really hard to say one way or the other whether or not it would hurt. It definitely would. I mean, if it would make a difference, but it definitely would not hurt. There are things that I could do with that officer to free up other things to where I can end up doing other type of operational things out in the street to try to curb. Like right now, I've got 2 detectives. One detective is working on patrol because he's got to cover for people's days off. If I had that other person, now I'd have 2 detectives. These are 2 detectives that are constantly working these shootings, and they're working their tails off because of it. But every now and then I got to slow back because now I got to cover a shift. So yeah, it would help definitely, but how much I couldn't honestly say exactly how much it would help, but it definitely wouldn't hurt.
And Mr. Moran, what was your other question, sir?
My other question was, what would be the cost of a part-time officer?
Okay. Vanessa, Ms. Portillo?
I can share that a fully loaded officer, meaning wages plus benefits, full time, the cost is about $90,000 to $95,000 a year. A part-time officer would look into $35,000 to $40,000.
Okay, Mr. Moran?
Yes, thank you.
And just for point, when I was a volunteer, my time was Victor 1, for volunteer 1. It was Victor 1, just so you know. So,
Can
okay,
I, Mayor Pro Tem, can I say something?
Go ahead, please. Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mr. Moran, with all due respect, I know he's saying what difference would one officer make on the street? When you pick up that phone, dial 911, and you need that officer there, that could be a difference. So I just want to throw that out there. I mean, for everybody, you know, you just never know. He could be around the corner. So that's a difference in itself. That's all I have on it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Anybody else from the public at this time?
Hello,
Yes, please identify yourself.
Julio Valadez.
Go ahead, Mr. Valadez.
So I have a couple or some questions. One is, will not hiring the additional officer or officers cost overtime, and would that end up costing more than hiring a regular time officer versus overtime?
Ms. Portillo?
I would direct
Or Chief Gloria?
Yeah, I can answer that. Would probably reduce, in most cases, our overtime. Yes.
Okay, but would it cost more not to hire someone in overtime than just hiring someone?
Okay. Let me ask this question, Ms. Portillo. How much are we budgeting in overtime for this year?
Overtime budget within the general fund is $125,000.
Okay, $125,000, Mr. Valadez, for overtime. If we were to hire an officer, we will still have overtime. We'll not eliminate the overtime.
Sorry, go ahead.
So now all this, either Ms. Portillo or Mr. Chief Soria explained how hiring another officer would still call for overtime. So who wants to answer that? Either one of you?
Well, it would reduce the overtime because that officer would basically, right now, because we're kind of low on what we actually have 2 squads, so basically it would put us back at a level where each squad has 7 officers. So when we take off, it would reduce the overtime there. However, that officer, when they go out and do things, they make arrests, things like that, you're still going to have to pay for overtime for them because of the fact that they're going to be going to court. They may be called into. There still could be issues where there's a time off, somebody's sick, things like that. You're still going to run into overtime, one way or the other. It's almost always going to happen. It kind of reduces it though, because of the fact that we're back with more officers on a squad, and anytime someone does take off, then you don't have that. Like, that kind of sounds a little off there, but yeah, there's things that we do, and any type of events, things like that. Although we haven't had any, that's probably one of the reasons why our overtime budget has not been used so much, because of there hasn't been so many events. But there's always going to be overtime for one thing or another, or any type of special detail that one of the sergeants or supervisors come up with. So you're going to have overtime, but usually on the shift, just the shift alone, usually that kind of reduces it. So when somebody takes off, you don't have it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I got it. No, I was just trying to kind of make a point on that. I know. I just want to clarify, because did someone say it's $125,000 in overtime for the whole city?
Yes. Oh, it's for the police department budget.
For the police department.
A police department budget only. That's it. All right. So that seems like the wage of an officer, or somewhere around there, right? I know you said the amount earlier, but it kind of, sometimes it breaks up. What does it cost to have an officer? The full-time officer?
It's about $90,000 to $95,000.
Okay, so it would be less than that. Okay, so that's one. And I'm just saying this so we can look at this so you guys can look at this when you're making that decision. The other question I have is, what is the recommended ratio of officers to the population, and where are we at?
Monica?
Julio, are you able to see the slide?
No, I'm not.
Police, our ratio is 1.5 officers per 1,000. Our current ratio is 1.15.
Yeah. So can you go ahead and read off the other cities for the racial purposes?
Sure. We have surveyed City of Los Banos, population 40,000. Their ratio is 1.19 officers per 1,000. City of Merced, population 83,000. Their ratio is 1.15 officers per 1,000. City of Atwater, we have population 29,000. Their ratio, right now is 0.81 officers per 1,000. Or the City of Turlock, population 73,000. Ratio of officers 1.06 officers per 1,000, and City of Livingston, population 14,000, and our ratio is at 1.14 per 1,000.
So we're average right now, right?
Yeah, we're about average here.
Okay, all right. Then the other question I have, does anyone know if there's actually police officers who are interested in the reserve program and not getting paid?
Mr. Valadez, we have already talked about that after this budget's adopted, Chief Soria and City Manager Ramirez will be bringing us a proposal for an unpaid reserve program, or possibly a mixture of it.
No, but the question is, do we know if there are officers interested in the program?
Currently, the two we have right now both have other jobs. They come out, they have to put in 16 hours a month. They do that. One of the other officers actually comes out every Friday, but they're not interested in full-time or anything like that or getting paid.
Right, but I don't know if I'm making myself clear, but Chief, is there officers out there who are interested in this program if the city makes it more widely available, if that's the direction that you're going?
Oh, yes, definitely. We actually have, I don't know how many we have, but we have a few reserve applicants just basically waiting to be going through the process.
All right, good, perfect, good to hear. And the last one is, I do, of course, support law enforcement and what you guys do, and thank you for what you do. And I think that it's a hard decision, but I think the city needs to do what it can with having the right amount of officers. Just this week, we have a 10 to 11-year-old boy that got jumped just walking with his two sisters here in Livingston. I don't think they even reported it to the police because they didn't feel anything was going to be done about it. And not to say anything bad about the department, or it's just that's what they felt.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Valdez, thank you very much. Your time is up.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Anybody else in the public?
Hello, this is Leticia Vasquez. I have a few questions.
Go ahead, please.
One question is for the chief. Chief Soria, how do the shifts for the officers look like? Are they working 8-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts? And then the other question that I have is, I know that at the beginning it was talked about two different recommendations. There was one that was given August 6th, and then the other one that was given August 25th. And it looks like the one given on August 25th, which is the freezing of the positions, it doesn't sound like that's going to go from what I'm hearing. So if this is not going to happen, then what's next? Are we moving forward with the recommendation that was done during August 6th, or are we figuring something else out?
Okay. What I'll do is I'll let Ms. Patel, I think you have it reversed the way I understand it. Ms. Patel, you want to get a quick, the difference between the August 6th and the August 25th proposal, please? I think.
Sure. In the August 6th proposal, one of the ways that the city was recommending to balance the budget, the general fund budget, was to implement furloughs, along with freezing vacant positions, looking into user fees and organizational restructures. During our workshop number 3 on August 25th, the furlough option, or the recommendation, it is no longer being made an option. Instead, we will be using one-time funds from sales tax to balance the budget. Also, the recommendation of freezing the vacant positions is still part of our staff recommendation, along with user fees and organizational restructure. So the only difference is we're no longer proposing to implement furloughs for city staff.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, this is Mike Mendoza, resident.
Go ahead, Mr. Mendoza.
Yes, I just wanted to comment, if I could, towards the new officer. I just punched the numbers really quick just to kind of get an idea, and the ma'am said there would be possibly about $95,000 per year for a full-time officer, around 14,000, possibly 14,500 residents, obviously including children. That equals about $7 per resident. Me, myself, personally, I have 5 people in my household, $35 a year, that's an all-go for me. I would definitely pay $35, $50, $100 extra a year for an extra officer to protect the town and protect the people. And the gentleman that spoke and said that, the 2 that got jumped, that's just horrible. And to me, $100 is nothing to watch a couple kids be able to walk down the street, home from school, home from the park, or home from the store, or just play outside. There's no reason for that. So just wanted to leave a comment.
Okay, thank you. Oh, going back to Chief on our schedule, what schedules do we run for the officers?
Actually, we run a 4-10 shift. They're on 4 days and then they're off 3. That's in their contract, so it can't deviate unless we go below 12 officers. Then we can go back to a 5-8 schedule. Right now, we're actually, one squad's on a 12-hour shift because of the fact that we had people on leave. It's uncontrollable, and you can't deny it. They're on family medical. So basically, we went to a 12-hour shift when we went and discussed we asked the union if they would do that to basically cut back on some overtime. So, and that is going to be probably going back within the next few weeks. We just got one officer back, and then the other officer will be coming back in a few weeks. And we'll be going back to the 410 on both squads.
Thank you. Mr. Mendoza, as far as your suggestion of paying additional money, the only way the city can do that is to be doing some sort of a sales tax or a per property type thing, and that requires elections. So just so you know, okay? Okay, Mr. Mendoza, do you have any other questions? If not, does anybody else from the public have any questions on the budget? Not hearing anybody come forward, it is not closed to the public. Council, further discussion?
Just for clarification, are we voting on this section separately than the rest of the budget, correct?
That is correct. We will be voting in sections. We can hold the voting of the budget for public safety right now, and then follow the second section when council members can integrate.
Thank you. What I'm going to do, and just for everybody's clarification, at this time, due to Councilmember Kane having to recuse himself, we're going to go ahead and adopt a budget just for the police department at this time. Nothing else. Everything else stays the way it is until we adopt. So at this time, just for the funding mechanism for the police department and staffing level, does anybody have further comments or make a motion?
I have some additional comments. Okay, so, all right, so part of our motion or whatever that we're going to take in order to adopt this or not, we're going to have in there stating that we need a plan of action, correct? And look into the reserve program, do some analysis with having a part-time person versus the overtime we're paying. Is that appropriate that we want to go ahead and pass the budget, or you want to wait
I think what we should do is we should go ahead and pass that portion of the budget with this condition they having to come back to us with the part-time and the reserve program.
Well, does it make sense to do that, or just wait for the actual?
It doesn't make sense.
What does that dollar sign look like? I mean, we're trying to. I don't understand. If you can make it more clear how we're breaking this down, we're doing what you're asking us to do right now is to look at a budget for the police department with all the modifications, recommendations, analysis. But what's the number?
This is the Mayor Pro Tem. I mean, I don't agree for us to adopt this part of the budget right now without seeing, like Councilmember Bautista is saying, about all the numbers and all that on paper, because, I mean, if it does not on paper, I mean, you know how that goes. So that's my recommendation on that part. I mean, I don't think it makes sense.
Could I pose a question real quick? would it be an issue, a problem, if we were to hold on this portion of the budget to have that kind of analysis on our next meeting and move forward with the rest of the budget? Or does it have to be passed as a whole in one meeting? Maybe that's a legal thing.
We need, our budget started, or the fiscal year starts July 1st. We are 2 months into the fiscal year, and we really need a guiding document to be able to move forward with many of the other projects that we have included in the budget. One of them, police, in the public safety budget, it's the roofs. And if we don't have a document that is approved by the council, we just won't be able to move forward. On the other hand, what we are proposing, like this analysis or additional requests, will definitely take some time. I'm not sure if Chief Gloria already has a dollar amount or anything as far as the research, but in my discretion, I would imagine that it will take some time, and we wouldn't want to delay much farther the adoption of the budget. However, what it is discretionary to do and quite conventional to do is adopt the budget and the recommendations as you see fit for the public safety budget, and come back to you with that analysis, and at that point make a recommendation to either use additional funds from the general fund, or we will come with a recommendation to say we have identified funding XYZ, or this will take away from our general fund reserve, and at that point you can make that decision once we have tangible numbers to provide to you in regards to that analysis.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that even with passing the budget today, with those special recommendations or requirements we're asking for you guys to do, if the council were to say, no, it's detrimental for the community for us to hire a police officer, we're going to dig into whatever funds we have available, there's still a possibility. It's a moving liquid document in a way to put it where it could be changed and it's not set in stone, correct?
That is correct. This is our guiding document. At the same time, there might be budget amendments, and that is one of the mechanisms in which this document gets altered or extended. And at any given point, if we were to bring an analysis in which we were required to tap into, using some of the savings from the positions that we froze at the beginning of the budget period, that would be part of the decision making and part of the recommendation that the council will do at that point.
Okay, so you just for clarification and transparency, you're telling us that obviously that's that could happen. Look into it deeper and make decisions and potentially change the actual police budget at a later time. You're saying that it's your recommendation and your department and the city's administration staffing recommending that we pass the budget now, so projects that are not necessarily have to do with police officer hiring could move forward, and the city could, obviously adopt the budget and have that fiscal or financial document to do business. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Okay, Councilor, any comments? If not, everybody wants to make a motion? I'll make the motion that we adopt the budget as proposed by staff, with the condition of having the staff come back to us with choices for additional reserve officers or part-time officers with other recommendations. I have a motion by the mayor. Do I have a second?
I'm gonna second that, but with a clear, specific, or direction that we have that as soon as possible. I think, based on discussions, we hear that most of us are interested in seeing those numbers and possibly, at least, for sure, having some kind of reserve program, hiring a part-time person, perhaps, other actions that police department is going to take, and that it's a liquid document that could be changed in the future based on that information is brought to us. And it's not set in stone, and we need to pass it in order for other business to continue in this department.
I have a motion by the mayor. I have a second by Councilman Aguilar. May I have roll call, please? Do you wish to make a comment?
What about that part about the 3 vacant positions? Is that still part of this passing?
Yes. Any other further comments? Okay, may I have roll call, please?
Roll
Do you
call.
want? Hold on, sorry.
Councilmember-
No, one second.
Is there, I know you mentioned that earlier in your comment about that position. Is that something you want to have changed in the motion? I mean, is your opportunity to voice your concerns? I don't want us to, leave without you saying what you have to say.
Again, I know this is just for this fiscal year about freezing vacant positions, and I know we're not even in a position to even hire, so it really doesn't make any sense to just freeze it if we're not going to hire, what was it, the captain position? And we're looking at reserves, so it's written in there just to, I'm not even sure why it would be there if right now we're considering looking at reserve officers and part-time officers. So freezing positions when we're not in the position to even hire within this fiscal year. So putting that into a breathing document doesn't make sense.
Well, with the motion, it simply says we'll pass the budget, and they will make recommendations to us. We can accept further recommendations or leave it as it is. That'll be discussion for at a future time.
So then put it
Okay.
in as part of this. Yeah.
Okay.
Got it.
May I have roll call, please?
Roll call. Councilmember Baptista.
Yes.
Councilmember Aguilar.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Garcia.
No.
Mayor Summer.
Yes.
Motion approved by a vote of 3-1.
Thank you very much. And would you please advise Mr. Kang that he can come in? Okay, would you please note that Councilman Kang came back into the 833, please? Okay, Ms. Patel, please continue with the rest of the budget.
The second section of our budget process today, it is reviewing and answering any questions from our council members, our mayor, or our citizens in regards to any other parts of our budget, any other departments except for public safety, since that it has already been being part of the decision. The part that we're reviewing right now is the administration budget, which encompasses elected officials, human resources, the city manager, city clerks, and finance office. We're looking at our recreation budget and all of the budget components of our recreation department. we're looking at the public works budget, the general fund section of the public works budget, the enterprise section as far as water, sewer, and sanitation. All of the other budget components of the public works department were the districts, landscape and maintenance districts and benefit assessment districts, and those were approved as part of the budget workshop or district approval workshop back in May 2020. And the last component of our budget, it is our community development department, which encompasses the planning division, the building, and engineering division. Also, for this or the remainder budget unit, back in our workshop of August 6th, we had recommendations. Part of those recommendations were to freeze positions. In this case, in the public works department, it's about $145,000 in savings. Majority of the positions are supported by the maintenance district and the enterprise fund. There's no general fund subsidy or support for the positions in public works. The recreation department has a one part-time position where we are recommending to freeze, since this department receives a subsidy from the general fund, and freezing that position creates savings from that department and lowers the general fund support for recreation. On August 6th, we were proposing to implement a citywide furlough. That is no longer the option. We had talked about looking into user fees, into a recreation and community development fees, and organizational restructures. Workshop number 3 on August 25th, we shared that we were receiving a one-time sales tax revenue that will help us, at least for fiscal year 2020-21, to balance our budget. It is $187,000 total. We propose to freeze the vacant positions that are currently in existence. In this section, we're talking about the recreation position and the public works position. We talked about user fees and also balancing our budget through organizational restructures. So with that, if there are any questions, we're here to answer them.
Council, any questions? Councilmember Aguilar?
In regards to the recommendations, obviously, like you mentioned earlier, it's a tough situation. Having to freeze positions, make cuts, have discussions such as user fee increases and stuff like that. Like I said, we're staying hopeful. We need to be financially and fiscally responsible, hoping things turn around. Really hoping and working with the city manager and, everybody involved that we could come up with other solutions and try to find some money and all of that. So I'm staying hopeful. That's pretty much the general comments.
Councilmember Ken?
Yeah, at the last workshop, we talked about cutting hours from our, was it planner or permit tech? Are we still doing that? Or you didn't mention that today?
That is part of the community development budget. It's already calculated into the community development budget.
So with like recreation, not using anything for the Sweet Potato Festival this year, or no swimming lessons, isn't that department going to be $70,000-$80,000 in surplus?
Not necessarily in a surplus. I know that Jackie was presenting a component of the reduction. Dr. J. said, 73,000 in reduction.
So with us not having Sweet Potato Festival, where is that 50,000 going to go to? Instead of having it.
Okay.
So you know, I don't got my budget book with me right now, but on the Sweet Potato Festival, it says that it was going to cost us about $50,000 since we didn't have that. Isn't that a savings? I say we didn't have the Sweet Potato Festival or swimming lessons in the summer.
Right.
Isn't that a savings already?
And I believe that it is part of the $73,000 that Jackie just shared, that we will be reducing from that budget, and it won't cost general fund support.
Jackie, if you may, when you plan for a specific event, you also have a revenue generating component to it. So as it relates to the Sweet Potato Festival, how does that look like?
Are you muted? Unmute you.
The revenue had already been taken out of the budget that you're looking at now. The thing that I did not take out is the expense side. So when I take out the $48,000, it truly would be, if we're not going to use it, a surplus. On the other programs that we're cutting, for instance, soccer, yes, we're not going to have, you know, the expenses, but we're also not going to have the revenue to come in to balance that out. So really the only true savings, so to speak, would be the Sweet Potato Festival. Does that make sense?
Now it does.
Anything else? Okay. Councilor Batista?
Was there anything on your budget you were going to share? I mean, other than what I just recall seeing, just the freezing of the position for the one part-time. But was there anything? I mean, and increasing the fees, and was that going to come to us with at a later time with how much the Rec Commission was going to bring forward?
Well, we figured in January we would try to bring forward recommendations for increases. We brought it to your one meeting, and it was not a positive, you know, because of the election coming up and so forth. People were not for having any increases. So we figured we'll just wait and go for it after the elections.
That's okay.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem?
I don't have anything at this time.
Okay. Before I make my comment, I'm going to open this up to the public. Public, this is for the rest of the budget. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. My apologies, sir. Go ahead.
So yeah, you did, but I wanted to have more comments.
No problem.
Yeah, I know we had discussed fee increases in the past, and I just want to make that clear that to me, it's not about an election. To me, I'm a big supporter of recreation. I think every child should have an opportunity to participate in all of that. It has nothing to do with an election to me. Obviously, times are different, and sometimes we have to consider other options to the benefit of the whole city and its operation. And I am open to increasing fees in regards to other people coming from out of town that are, enrolling their kids in our programs. I think that's only fair for our kids here in town. So I just want to make that clear. And then also, I know there's been some talk in the community that the council somehow wanted to cut programs or cut the budget of the recreation department. I don't recall ever voicing that in regards to me. I know that times are tough and we have to be creative and freezing the position. But I've been nothing but a supporter and an advocate for the recreation department, including advocating for the creation of the Recreation Commission. I'm a big supporter of the beautification projects, the mural projects, and I just want to make that clear out for people who are listening, that, the last thing we want to do is cut programs or projects. To me, there's always a solution, or at least attempt a solution. Be creative, find other funding source. That's what I've said a number of times, that we need to get a grant writer, or at least a part-time grant writer, to look for those financial opportunities that we miss on a regular basis. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Council, any further comments before I open to the public? Okay, if not, this item is now open to the public. Does anybody wish to make a comment on the rest of the budget?
Yes, I would.
Please identify yourself.
Walter King. Hey, I just think that it would be more beneficial for the city to discuss numbers before approving a budget than discussing numbers or potential raises after the budget. At least this way, before the budget, we kind of know what our income will be like. It's kind of like running a household. You don't want to spend money that you don't have, so we want to make sure that we are going to generate that money. So again, my suggestion would be at least to see what the increases are going to be, because if they're about anywhere from like $2 to $5, that's not going to make a difference. But if I can see if we're competitive to other surrounding cities of our size, that would be beneficial. Again, I'm not for cutting down positions, because I feel like we're trying to grow our town, and if we get rid of certain positions that are approving certain plans, I feel like we're going to slow our process down, and that's not going to be good for the city, because, again, we want to provide a perfect, service to our residents. But again, if we cut down a position at halftime that's approving some of these homes or overlooking some of these homes or permits, our citizens are the ones going to hurt, and they're the ones that are going to have to wait for that process. I mean, it's going to make the city look bad to tell somebody, hey, come back tomorrow when the person's here. Oh, but make sure you only come back between 8 and 12 o'clock, because that's the only time the city hall is open. So we need to start looking at other resources or other ways. Again, like some of the council members mentioned, applying for grants would be perfect, but at the same time, I feel like we need to look at our income and see exactly what we're going to generate before we start making decisions on approving a budget that we don't know what's going to happen to. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else from the public?
Yes, Jason Roth.
Go ahead, Mr. Roth.
What are the cost comparisons to cities around us compared to Livingston, and how do they differ?
As far as the recreation cost?
Correct.
Ms. Patil?
We did a survey of all the surrounding areas. If somebody here in Livingston decided they didn't want to play here, we did all the cities that they would probably go to, as far as Modesto and as far as Merced. And in that survey, we were 30 to 50% lower than all the surrounding areas. And I think I actually gave you guys that survey once upon a time. But it was a lot.
Thank you, Jackie. That's a great answer. So Livingston has room to grow and expand with the fees. And that's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, Mr. Ron. Anybody else from the public have any comments or questions?
Yes, this is Jose Moran, if I may.
Go ahead, Mr. Moran.
Thank you, sir. Jose Moran, PO Box 847, Livingston, California. And I wanted to ask for the public's knowledge, what was the previous fiscal budget for the Recreation Department compared to the current fiscal budget, proposed budget for the Recreation Department? And just to clarify, is that part-time position with the amount of $19,000, is that a current open part-time position, or is that a currently filled part-time position that is being considered to be cut? Give me 1 second. And I think that the Recreation Department does serve a great service to the community. And the way I see it, it's an investment on our kids in the community, because I've seen my kids participate in the program since they were 6, 7 years old. And I've seen a lot of other kids as well. And I believe that thanks to that, we have a lot of kids that are currently in sports and not out on the street. Thank you.
Yes. So last year's budget for the recreation program, their expenditures were $532,000. This year, their expenditures are $485,000. So we can see there is a trend. It's a decrease. What it's showing here, or what happens here, is that revenues are not being collected since our programs are not happening at this moment. However, our expenditures are still stagnant. We still have to pay our facilities, our maintenance, our personnel. So it requires that general fund support. The position that we are recommending to freeze at the moment, it's a vacant position, meaning there's no one, there's not a body in that position.
When was the last time that body was full?
She left with COVID. When we shut down City Hall, she left. We had a student, she's in there part-time, so she would go to school part-time, and then she would come in and work part-time. But when we shut down City Hall, and she left.
Can I ask a quick question? Is that graph corresponding to this?
That's correct.
So it still has the Sweet Potato Festival on there?
That is correct. This expenditure bar is still reflected as the expense.
Mr. Moran, any other comments?
No, thank you. I believe that we got the answers that we needed. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Anybody else from the public?
I have a comment. Yes, Mayor, this is Wapinder. I never got the answers to my questions like the other citizens have.
Can you repeat your question, sir?
It's going to be pretty hard to remember them, but what are the increases that we're looking at? And then again, why budget for something that's already passed when we can save somebody's job? Again, and when was the last time that part-time position was actually full or filled?
Okay. Ms. Bertea?
on the recreation budget
So the
or
part-time
budget?
The part-time position was filled prior to COVID.
Do we have a date?
March, mid-March.
And we have books that can prove that, right?
Sure.
And the raises of what are we raising the fees to? Or we're planning on raising the fees to?
Well, they haven't been proposed yet.
I thought she mentioned that she had brought it up once to council already.
I know, but are we going to bring the same back up again? And
Well, we were looking at raising the picnic area fees, all of our youth sport. Well, actually, just about everything across the board was going to go up to a reasonable amount that would make us a little more competitive with other cities surrounding us.
Yeah, we're trying to get an exact dollar amount, not because reasonable fees is very broad, so it can be $1 to $20. So, is there any?
Well, that would be an amount.
Number?
That would be an amount that the council has to approve. I mean, even if we say, okay, the kids' fees are going to go up $25, and the council doesn't go for that, then they will set the amount. So the ball will be in their court, so to speak, as to what those fees will be.
Again, the recommendation would be made by
the rec commission.
Okay, because we're just thinking, because I've noticed that all council members have also mentioned that they're all for raising fees. So is there any way to start that process as soon as possible so we can at least see how much money we're going to possibly generate for the city this fiscal year?
Well, it's actually already done. We were just waiting for the opportune time to bring it.
Is there any possibility that could be put on the agenda for next week? Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else from the public?
Yes, I have a comment.
Yes. Go ahead.
No, sorry, I'll go after you. Go ahead.
Okay. So this is Leticia again.
Yourself?
Yeah, Leticia.
Go ahead.
I guess I lost. The volume is really bad, so it's really hard to understand what's happening. But I guess I just want to clarify if I'm understanding this correctly. So the proposal says that we are they're proposing to freeze the part-time position that's available, and that was filled back in March or something like that. And then what's the other recommendations? I was having a hard time hearing.
Sure. Besides the freezing of positions that are vacant at the moment, we propose to balance the general fund budget with one-time sales tax money. It's $187,000 that we will be receiving as a one-time fund. We are also recommending that we look into our fees. That would be recreation fees and community development fees, and those will be coming up to council for review and approval at some point in the future. And also looking into organizational restructures, meaning combining processes, looking into ways that we can be more effective, more efficient using our resources, and continue to save money for the city.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Anybody else from the public?
Yes, I have a comment.
Please identify yourself.
All right, Gabriel Salazar, P.O. Box 544. First, I want to say, I think it seems like the best decision is to freeze positions and possibly use that one-time sales tax benefit that the city has along with the freeze, or just going with the complete freeze at the moment. I don't think it's a good time, and it's probably never a good time to raise fees for the community. But at this time, of course, with COVID-19, with people staying indoors, with people losing their jobs, with people worrying about paying rent, paying their house bills, paying other things that they have to do, providing food to their families on the table. I think it's not a good time to raise fees, like I said, for parks and recreation, etc. I think I'm happy with the freeze, like I said. I think that's the best recommendation based on what staff's provided. And thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome, sir. Anybody else in the public? If not, then the public...
Hello, this is Julio Valadez.
Go ahead, Mr. Valadez.
I just want to say I agree with the citizens who are saying that the recreation department should be one that has enough funds to keep kids off the streets. As I mentioned earlier, what happened with the kids. If you keep kids busy doing something, then they're not going to, hopefully they don't get in trouble because they're involved in some type of recreation, whether it be the city, schools, or whatever. So I think that recreation should get whatever funding's available to them and trying not to cut as much from recreation. As it's very important to keep our kids involved. I've been a coach with the recreation department since my son was 7 till he was 14 when he moved on to high school and other things happened in his life. But it really helped that that he was involved in these things and helped us, some of his friends as well. The other thing I want to say is that I don't know if we can compare the fees that Livingston would charge compared to Modesto, Turlock, or towns that have a higher income level than Livingston. So I mean that's something that we got to be careful with. If I remember right, it's hard to get people to pay the fees that we have right now. With some of the organizations I'm involved, I know we've helped families pay for the fees because some families have more than one child and they may not be able to afford the fees for all of them. So they have, I don't know, sometimes they have to choose who or which kid is going to be involved and so on. So I think we should be careful with that also and not compare our small town with the income level that we have to others that have a way higher income level than Livingston.
Okay.
That's all I have. I hope that we keep as much, like I said, the budget as much intact for recreation as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Valadez. Anybody else from the public?
If I may say something, this is Leticia again. Leticia.
I'm sorry. You've already spoken once. So I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm sorry? Would you like to ask? Yeah?
Yes. Leticia, I'd like to hear what you have to comment on, please.
Go ahead, Susan.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give feedback because I work as a mental health therapist in the Modesto area, and I've worked with teenagers and young kids from 6th grade, six years all the way till 17 years old. And a lot of the kids have been involved in recreational activities, and the feedback that I get from these children is that it's very meaningful for them because that's where they build relationships and they build sometimes families. Sometimes these kids, their parents are always working and they get to spend time with friends and maybe friends' parents. And I think I just wanted to share that for people to take into consideration of the bigger picture. It's not just a sport, but maybe building community, building relationships, and building bonds for children that might not have that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Since we opened it for Leticia, does anybody else wish to, they've already spoken, wish to make a comment again? You have to be...
All right.
Yes,
sure. This is Julio Valadez. I do want to thank you guys for allowing Miss Leticia, I didn't get her last name, I think it's Vasquez, to speak because that is very important. She's in that field. And in my family situation, my son has missed a lot of social interaction, whether it was in school or sports, because of his situation, and that's the biggest part that he really needs. And physically and medically he's good now, but mentally that's where our issues are at. So thank you, Ms. Leticia, for speaking on that.
Yes, thank you both. Anybody else from the public here?
Yes, if I may, and I appreciate to the council for allowing us to add another message, because I think it's very important. One thing that I forgot to mention, and I think it's important to consider, as other people have been doing it, 90% of our kids at our local schools, 90% of 90 to 92% of our kids are on free meals. What that means is that they do not qualify. That they qualify for free meals, which means they're low income. Depending on their number of people in the family. So that is also something that the council should consider when considering rate increases. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Anybody else? One more time. Does anybody else wish to make a comment at this time? If not, then the public portion is now closed. Council comments?
I just want to kind of wrap all of that up, and again, appreciation to our recreation department and the programs that they provide and the events that they provide on behalf of the city of Livingston. It's a lot of work. It's definitely a lot of work, and it doesn't come cheap on anybody. But what it does for our community is provide a chance for everybody to come together and enjoy an event that they don't have to go out of town for. But they also have to realize that, again, it may come free to the entry fee, to the concerts, to contests, but in some fashionable way, we are still paying for that. And I think we need a chance for all of us to get together and help our recreation department try to generate those funds through sponsorships, donations. Again, we're looking at the makeup of our town, the economics, and again, Mr. Moran mentioned about the schools. That is something that is brought just through the schools. That doesn't really mean that's through their daily attendance that they receive funds. But when it comes down to putting our children in sports and keeping them together, growing together, I really do believe we do need to work with our schools. Some of the fees that our rec department is paying for is some of the facility rentals that we do have there. So I think that there's some conversation that needs to be had between city manager and some of the administration, so that it's not so hard on us, because I do see on the school board side that they have funding for their sports programs, and us on our side trying to come together and meeting those fees for them. And again, it's a give and take, and I don't know how much giving and how much taking either one is doing, but again, it's coming out of our budget when some of those facilities, again, were agreed upon with the Child Development Center and the things that I know that our community would like to see. It was a big sports facility. And at some point, we want to have that. But again, it's all of us coming together and finding ways to support our rec department. If they have an event coming up, they are quarter trees. It's really, really saddening to see that Jackie has to keep promoting it and promoting it and promoting it. $35 a tree, come on out, Livingston. We have 50 trees. Week 2 goes by, so we still have 45 trees. So again, we're talking about the opportunities that are being provided to our community. We need to support it. Again, if our citizens and residents are asking for these and they're provided, then that means that you should participate. And again, that's through either donations, your volunteerism, your service. So, and as we go through with that, I know that there are some areas that Jackie's work and her staff are working really hard to trying to curb and trying to cut and trying to save. And again, I am careful that that's not at the expense of youth programs, because I'm a real advocate for that, and I know what it does outside of just the recreation and the competition, and how children develop through all their growing domains. So again, I am one to support the recreation department, but I do not want to see any of those programs go. And when we're talking about the percentage of our surrounding cities, Jackie had mentioned that they're at 30% more, and I get it. We have some Turlock, Modesto, a little bit. They're affluent communities. We could be there too. So it's just a matter of what our citizens are willing to pay for, and let the record reflect, we're not willing to do many of these things because it comes out of a cost out of your own pocket, and that's really sad. So when we talk about needing to raise those funds or raise those fees, and no joke, it came out to us a couple months ago. What was it? Maybe $10 raised, and I am for raising those fees substantially, so that the rec department can find a way to get those funds that they need. Because if we're not charging for the soccer fields, we're not being competitive. That's why everyone's coming to Livingston. We're getting these out of town teams coming into our town wanting to use our facilities, or Jackie having to put stipulations in a contract saying if you're from out of town, we're going to charge you an extra $100. I'm not sure. I'm exaggerating. I know it's not $100, but an extra fee that's tacked onto that because you're from out of town. Well, people are going to find a way to get around that. And again, we're cheating ourselves. We're cheating our community on things that we could be providing for our youth. So being creative, Jackie, I support you with what needs to be done, and that is, raising some of those fees. I know that the position is probably valuable to the young girl that had it, and I know many of these positions are valuable to the youth that we have. But I also want to suggest that some of the positions that are seasonal, part-time, I'd like to see our youth just come out and volunteer for it. These are paid positions, and some of them, they need to be certificated. They put in the hours. Maybe there can be some, instead of an hourly rate, maybe a stipend, because I know that they do that through the high school. If you, in the season, a volleyball season, I did it. You go 4 months, and you get a small stipend, and I'm okay with that because I'm working with the youth, and I know this is youth coaching youth. The experience alone is valuable. Their time is valuable, and we need them. And we need parents. We need parents to step up and become coaches so that their children can follow the same direction, so that we can have that cohesiveness throughout our city of where we have service and volunteerism and an appreciation of what a recreation and Arts Commission brings. So we're not constantly having to say, no, let's cut them, let's cut them. They play a very important role in our town. And again, that has to go back to our school systems. I know Mr. Valadez shared with us about the youth being on the streets, the safety. Again, that's the educational part where we have to train up our kids differently. And maybe there's going to be, some programs that we have that include those types of behavioral classes that can go through It's just suggestions, and I know that there are contract classes that Jackie has, very valuable things that our community needs to invest in with time, money, resources. So, thank you.
Any other comments? Yes, okay, great, thank you. Council, any other comments? There's no time. If not, I'll make a motion to adopt the resolution number 100, the City of Council.
We cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I make the motion that we adopt the resolution of the City Council of the City of Livingston adopting the budget and appropriating the revenue for fiscal year 2021. Okay. And we need to do it again separately, correct?
I'm sorry?
The attending the GAN Corporation, that's a separate resolution, isn't it?
It's part of the resolution, the GAN limit.
Okay, and setting the GAN Corporation limits for the fiscal year 2021. I have a motion by the mayor. Do I have a second?
Sorry, just quick clarification.
Go ahead.
This motion includes the workshop recommendation, workshop number 3 recommendation.
Yeah, from the 825 year.
Which it includes user fee, recreation increases. What does that exactly look like as we're passing the budget? Does it mean that it's gonna, you know what I mean? Because we're passing it, we're making a motion, we're passing it. What exactly does, that's a little vague.
No, we
Are we gonna look at it? It's just coming back.
We would have to.
Yes.
We would have to bring it forward for adoption.
Well, the last time we brought the fees, the council recommended not to do anything. So with what we are asking is to give us the go-ahead, the green light to bring back this item, look into user fees for recreation and start up this conversation again. So that way we can look into viable ways into looking in the future and having having more revenue to fund the programs that we want to provide to our citizens.
Yeah, it would be bringing to for the.
Quick question about the planner that we're supposed to cut hours.
Yeah.
Have you talked to the company? Are they okay with that, or are they going to just walk away from us?
They are contract. That's one of the reasons why we contract this position, because it gives us that flexibility, and it's part of the contract that if funds are not available, we will, make reductions to the services and the hours.
If we actually cut our hours and the company decides to walk away with it. So what are the chances of us finding a different contract company that's cheaper than them?
Well, normally, as much as we have a contract with them, they have a contract to us to provide us that service. So in the event that they decide to walk away from it, there is already a breach of a contract. So they're going to provide us with the service of a permit technician, whether it is the person that comes today or someone that is well qualified and provide the services of the permit.
Wouldn't this slow us down from new construction, like the apartment complex coming up? How is that going to affect everything?
Well, let me go ahead and address that. Thank you very much, Councilmember King. So one of my responsibilities is to look at, all of the different departments individually and as a whole. So if you were to ask me, do we have a need? We have a need in all departments. Just like we have a need for officers, we have a need for a full-time planner. We have a need for, having full staffing in the, building official, except that we don't have the funds. And so I have to basically do more management. We have to do more with less. So there's going to be interactions by me specifically, and then interactions with my other department heads. So we're going to have to share in our space to make sure that we don't drop the ball with the different developments that are happening. And so with development, you have highs and you have lows. You know, and once in a while you got something in between. So we're going to do our darnest to make sure that nothing falls through the cracks. Now, if you decide that you want to fund that, to fully fund back to full capacity, that is money that you're going to have to add back into as part of balancing the budget. So that money is already being accounted for, meaning that it's not in the budget. So the savings is what, 40,000? How much?
It's 49,000.
Yeah, 49,000.
Can we revenue money from the 49 acres we have out there? Since last meeting, I've had few people actually call me, willing to pay more than this $8,000. And even the city parking lots we own, can we rent the neighboring buildings? Can we charge them a little bit of rent to park there?
Okay, so let me take those two questions separately. So the acreage over at the wastewater treatment plant, that would be great if we can get more funding. Of course, it's not as easy because if there's irrigation that goes on, we would have to enter into a irrigation and water runoff program. But if we were to do that and get more money, great. However, that money that's generated that belongs to the wastewater treatment facility, that money has to go back into the wastewater. We can't use it in the general fund. The second question related to the parking. One, we do not have a structure in place for any fees for rental. If that's something that the council wants to look at into the future and look at whether it's viable or not. And so and then by the time you start generating that, can you capture the full $49,000 a year? I think that would not necessarily be the case. But it's up to council in terms of how you want to fund this position to full capacity and where would you get the $49,000?
That's the second question. Is the second parking lot that's next to the dollar store, the new one that we just put up, is that also city owned or is that private?
No, that's privately owned by the Ron Clinic.
Anything else, Mr. Kane? Any other further comments? We still have a motion, but there's a motion. Does anybody wish to make a second?
With clarification, correct?
Yeah, with the clarification that user fee resolution will come to the council for review and adoption.
And then the same kind of thing, like further changes could be through a budget amendment or.
Yes.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by the mayor and I have a second by Councilman Aguilar. May I have roll call, please?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
No. Yes. Did she call you? Okay. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. What was the vote count? Okay, the vote was 3-2. Motion passed. Okay, and now going on to item number 6. This is the received direction from the council to initiate Prop 218 notices process for the proposed wastewater rate increases. Who's taking that? Mr. Romero?
Yes, Mayor and Council. So as you know, over the course of this year, given all the dynamics that have been happening, we've had to delay the Prop 218, well, the increases because we've actually initiated and started and sent out and completed the 218 process. But once pandemic hit and to give some breathing room to the to the public, council at that time decided to push off the actual increases to August. So we came back to council in anticipation of in August, and at the last council meeting, we kind of mentioned where we were at and the direction that we were going. And so at this moment in time, if council was to want to initiate the Prop 218 hearing process again, noting that the dollar amounts that are going to be put in place has not changed. The only thing that's changing is when they're actually going to be implemented. So those fees that were going to be adopted in May are being pushed off for water, and wastewater are being pushed off to January 1st. And then, of course, there was no rate increase for the remainder of this year for solid waste. So that dollar amount or that fee is the exact same that would start January 1st of 2021. In order to achieve that, if you look at the implementation timeline, the council would have to give staff direction to go ahead and send out the notices for the 45 days, and the public would have the option of communicating any questions or actually submitting a protest vote between now and October 10th of this year. If the council decides to move forward with that, then at the November 17 meeting, you would be taking, you would basically be adopting the rates at the second reading. And because here we have to do it by resolution and by ordinance, it wouldn't take into effect until 30 days afterwards. So then that'll give us enough time to start collecting the new fees starting January 1st of 2021.
Council, discussion? Councilmember Aguilar?
In regards to this item, I know that this has been brought up in the past, and for transparency purposes and to be open to the community about this, which is the right thing to do. I advocated to have this put in the agenda to discuss options and actions that council will going to take. To me, it's very important that we are having this out in the open and having these discussions. Obviously, the city has spent some money on this, on the studies, rate studies. Money that needs to be that the city needs to know how much we spend and consequences of us not taking any action. I know there's a very tough topic and discussion regarding increased rates. I know obviously we're facing this COVID situation where a lot of families are out of work. There's a lot of financial instability out in our community, and obviously I've heard from community members that this could be detrimental to their well-being and detrimental to their livelihood. So that's something that I wanted to make sure that we have this discussion out in the open, and every member has an opportunity to, have their opinion heard and just get more information from also from our staff in regards to how much money we spent. What could it mean if we push this out some more? All that stuff.
Councilman Aguilar, just to answer your question, to date, if I remember correctly, I think we've spent close to $50,000 in this whole process.
Okay. Councilmember Karen, any comments? Councilmember Batista?
I can agree with that. Yeah, just to follow up with Councilmember Aguilar, we are in hard times, but again, leaving that up to the public to come and put their discussions and their concerns and their petitions forward. I mean, I think that's the opportunity that they are afforded during this time. to speak on this, but I know that this has to move forward. We have to keep moving forward with this item. Again, it's already cost $50,000. Starting a second process is going to do it again. So we're just spinning our wheels here. So I think this process does need to move forward.
Good. Mayor Pro Tem, any comments?
I don't have any comment.
Okay. This item is now open to the public. Does anybody from the public wish to make a comment? Okay. Nobody from the public wish to make a comment? Council, any direction? Any further conversation?
Are you gonna comment on this?
No, I'm waiting for everybody. I was comment last. So.
I know, but you're asking for action. I'm asking for your
No,
comment.
okay. Well, I'm asking, is there any further comment or any direction? No? So, if you don't give direction, then it pretty much waits till we make a decision, correct?
Do you have nothing to comment on this as the mayor?
If you want me to comment, I'll comment. For me, my feeling is the public is in a very tough situation right now. And if you look out there are people scared about their next paycheck. They don't know what's going to happen. And to add this on to their, right now at this time, I don't think it's appropriate. So to me, I think we should wait another few months, maybe beginning of the year, and look at it again.
To give you a little bit of clarification from the city manager, what does it mean pushing it out a few more months? In regards to the study, are we still able to use that same study? What kind of consequences could we be facing? What consequences that we could have on our operation here in the city?
Okay, so do we have that chart, Vanessa, that we can please show?
This is on out of revenue.
So we've communicated this chart. We've talked about this chart several times actually. But again, in essence, if we do not make any adjustments, of course, the timeline that we initially advocated for because of COVID, we couldn't take. So at the end of the day, the further we push it out, the more difficult it's going to be for the residents, because you're looking at a higher increase. Okay, but then what I wanted to communicate to you is that that timeline has now been shortened in terms of the forecast of the 5 years, because we're going to have to come back at a moment in time earlier than anticipated to have another study to look at where we are financially, because we were not able to collect funding from May to the end of the year. Okay, so the more we push it off, again, this is you guys are taking all kinds of different factors in all of this, because again, this is an unprecedented year. What I would like to say is that pushing the decision a little further down the year will just make it a little more difficult for you all, because the cost, of course, of trying to recapture funding is going to be difficult. But again, the decision is up to you all.
Good.
Thank you.
Council, any discussion?
Just a little bit further comment in regards to me. I understand that there's a need, obviously, based on the studies, based on the time our utility stakeholder committee took to really look into the studies and work together, to recommend, those increases. So yeah, I want to give thanks to the utility stakeholder committee for their hard work. I understand that there's a need to increase utility rates. I know this issue is a very sensitive issue because it's been going back, for many, many years, where it has just been kicked down the road for whatever reason, political or non-political, for doing the right thing for the community, to keep our rates affordable, whatever the case may be. But it has been pushed down the road for many, many years, and at some point we're gonna have to take action. There's no way around it, and that's a hard decision that us as community leaders need to take and look at. And I really was hoping that community members would voice their opinion. Those people listening out, in this meeting, I was really hoping to hear what everybody has to say about this, about increased utility rates. But like I said, I know these are unprecedented times. The whole situation is very difficult. Bad timing. I know it's bad timing. A lot of people have lost jobs, reduced hours, ill people. The whole economy has slowed down. It really is unfortunate. It's bad timing. I cannot justify increasing, for myself, I'm speaking for myself now, I cannot justify increasing rates at this time because of the current situation. I know that the staff has worked very hard on this. I'm hoping the economy gets better, situations get better. We need to address this. There's no way around it, like I mentioned earlier. But I have, heard from the community. Not a lot, obviously people aren't very excited about rates going up. They would like to find other solutions to supplement, utility rates in other ways. So that's what I have to say.
Council, any further discussion?
Vanessa, if you could, what would that, I know that we broke it down into increments for each of the water, each part, but what is that increment, that first step, what is that increase in dollars? It was like a minute, like $5, correct? That would be the impact that we would see in January to the water bill alone until we further added the other two. Correct. So we're looking at just a $5 increase to our water rate.
For 2021.
For 2021, and then another slight increase through the following year. So I understand, but a $5 increase to get, and we've already lost 50,000. So a $5 increase to be imposed on our community to help us with the water rate, I'm not feeling the same way. I mean, I get it. People are facing hard times, but it is a small increase to begin with, starting in January. A $5 increase that we're talking about.
Thank you. For me, let me give I wasn't going to comment anymore, but I'll make a little further comment. Over the years, city has done things. We're increasing rates. One time, we did listen to the community. It didn't work out for the city, but in the past, we have reached out to the citizens, and they get it. Back then they supported it. They said, please do so. We did it about 4 or 5 years ago. They were all for it. But they're also asking, hey, give us a little bit of a break. We're so unsure of what's going on. So I'm really, really thinking that we need to work with the community that works with us on every time to delay this a little further. So, but if council wants to move forward, it's its decision. So at this time, does anybody wish to make a motion to move this forward?
I want to make a motion to move this forward.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Batista. Do I have a second? Seeing no second, motion does not pass. So does anybody wish to make any other motions? If not, then we will move on to another item, which is we have none. Councilman, any further business? If not, we are in adjournment. Thank you very much.